Part 97. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 961. Chapter 961, When will the rich second generation get out of singles? Because of the party, Yuan Ran specifically told her mother that she would get off work early today and would go home later in the evening. MRSU was very positive, and Ran, my mother picked out a dress a few days ago that seems to suit you very well. I just sent it home yesterday and I haven't had time to tell you yet. It just so happens that you have to attend a friend's party today, so wear it out. Okay mom. Yuan Ran really doesn't have any special concerns about her own clothing. In her opinion, it's just as long as it's comfortable, and she feels that other people's opinions are much better than her own. So Yuan Ran didn't think much about it when changing clothes or putting on makeup. It wasn't until she left the house that MRSU began to give explicit hints. I think you said that your friends are all in the same major, so it would be fun to communicate with them. You are already so old, try to make more friends. To put it bluntly, I just hope that she can take this opportunity to find a boyfriend. Yuan Ran, who cherished words like gold, felt helpless, but did not speak to refute. MRSU took it as if she agreed. Yuan Ran picked up her long skirt when she went out and sighed softly. When she arrived at the party, she realized that she was the second one to arrive. The first person to arrive was their host, who was also the former student union president in the department, named Xiao He. Xiao He is eloquent and can talk to anyone, and he will never be left alone wherever he is. To put it crudely, he is very good at talking. Even when facing Yuan Ran, who cherishes words like gold, Xiao He can liven up the atmosphere. From the beginning, there were only the two of them present. When Xiao He saw her, he greeted her as if she were an old acquaintance. Wow, beauty you, long time no see. You are beautiful again. Today's long dress is as if it was tailor-made for you, it brings out your temperament vividly, it's simply. Xiao He is really eloquent. Yuan Ran listened silently to the whole process of his bragging, and finally said, why don't you become a salesperson? If Xiao He works as a salesperson to recommend products to customers, he will definitely achieve high results. Xiao He was not embarrassed by these words. Instead, he looked very happy, and ran, how could it be that when I see you dressed up, you are completely different from when you were in school? You are so beautiful. This is a normal way of complimenting. Yuan Ran accepted his compliments generously, nodded slightly, and said, thank you. Who doesn't like to hear other people complimenting her on her beauty? Even though Yuan Ran doesn't pay much attention to her appearance, as a woman, she will feel better when she hears compliments from others. Soon, two other people came. There were actually only 5 or 6 of them in this gathering. One person said from the beginning that he might not be able to come, but ended up not being able to come. There was also another person who originally promised to come, but ended up becoming the ace pigeon and letting them go. There are only 4 people sitting facing each other at this moment, including a man and a woman who have been together since college and have been showing off their love for 4 years. Baby, this restaurant is good, I've been there before. My dear, you have such a good memory. This couple is really magical. From the beginning of their relationship to now, they seem to be addicted to a honeypot. The couple's interaction made both Yuan Ran and Xiao He a little embarrassed. Xiao He tried to talk to Yuan Ran. As a rich second generation, how about taking over the family business now? As always. Then when do you plan to get single? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 962. Chapter 962. Where are your hands going? Yuan Ran answered honestly, no plan. Then what do you think of me? After being speechless, he could only reply, I haven't considered it. Well, and Ran, You are always really direct when rejecting people. Xiao He smiled and did not let the two of them stay in an awkward state. Xiao He began to greet the other two people. Hey, I said we are here to have a dinner today, not to see you show affection. You have enough. The couple smiled at each other and finally merged into their conversation. Yuan Ran would never chat or laugh with others, whether at a business banquet or a class reunion. The reason she was willing to have dinner with her and the others now was just to solidify her connections. Although it seems that there is no direct connection in business, there is no guarantee when these connections will be needed. Yuan Ran did not come here just for fun, but to make full use of the value of this meal. After the small dinner party, the couple walked away. Leave Xiao He and Yuan Ran behind. As a man, Xiao He must of course be a gentleman and offer to send the lady home. But Yuan Ran refused. Thank you for your kindness, I can go back by myself. Yuan Ran also worked in the student union before. The head of a certain department often had work handovers with Xiao He, the chairman of the student union. So Xiao He also knew something about her. Although Yuan Ran was not strong, she was definitely not a soft girl. She acts calmly and has her own opinions. Since Yuan Ran said no, it really means no need, and he didn't mean to pretend to be polite at all. Xiao He understood this about Yuan Ran and quickly compromised without holding back. Xiao He told her, okay then, send me a message when you get home safely. Okay. Yuan Ran agreed to this simple request without hesitation. The two of them went home in different directions, almost in opposite directions. But both of them need to wait for the bus, and they have to wait at one point. Unwilling to be left alone, Xiao He took the initiative to talk to Yuan Ran. "An Ran, you are really different now than you were at school before. People always have to grow. There are obvious changes in both the way we dress and the way we behave. When she was in school, her clothes were only in black and white. Apart from regular shirts and trousers, they were loose and sporty. Her hair was pulled up. Because she never smiled, she looked a little indifferent. Now she is wearing a long skirt and exquisite makeup, and her long shawl hair adds a bit of feminine charm to her whole person. She is a mature woman and very seductive. No one can deny this. Especially in the eyes of mature men, it is even more exciting. An Ran, you said you wanted to be a single aristocrat when you were in school, but you have changed your mind now. Are your family members not urging you?" "So what?" Yuan Ran asked back. The eloquent Xiao He almost choked at her tone and chuckled twice randomly, seeming to be in a very happy mood. "I take back what I just said, you really haven't changed at all." Yuan Ran. He is the one who says that things have changed a lot, and he is the one who says that he has not changed at all. But whether she has changed or not, what is the point of debate? After all, there is only Yuan Ran in this world. The cool breeze at night brushed against her cheeks and blew up Yuan Ran's strands of hair. A trace of black hair sticks to her cheek. Xiao He raised his hand and slowly approached her cheek. A dark shadow flashed before his eyes. Xiao He's hand was twisted back, and a man's voice with gritted teeth came to his ear. "Where are you going to touch your hand?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 963. Chapter 963, Getting on the Black Bus. Suddenly a strange man ran out, with a murderous look in his eyes. Xiao He was startled. "Who are you?" When Xiao He asked this question, B pressed harder, making Xiao He's expression of pain change uncontrollably. B's strength is not something that ordinary people can resist. In order to prevent tragedy from happening, Yuan Ran quickly told him to let go. "B, let go." When she spoke, there was no one in B who didn't listen. B immediately retracted his hand and put his arm around Yuan Ran's waist, pretending to be intimate. Of course, I want to take you home. Beye deliberately showed off his affection in front of others, just to give it a try and see whether Yuan Ran would refuse or follow his wishes. But before Yuan Ran had time to show her refusal or cooperation, the taxi she had just hailed was already parked next to her. Yuan Ran stepped back and said, "Xiao He, you go first. And you? I am free to make arrangements." Looking at Yuan Ran's unyielding look, Xiao He didn't force him to stay. Yuan Ran and Beye were left on the roadside. Yuan Ran clicked a few times on his cell phone. At the beginning, Beye was a little lucky that Yuan Ran was willing to stay here with him for a little longer. "Was that? Are you following me?" B was stumped by her sudden question. He never thought that Yuan Ran looked at the problem from such a tricky angle. I immediately suspected that he was following. "Of course, I'm not following you, I happen to be nearby." A lie is a lie. How false this statement is, who would believe it? But Kitano knew that he must not betray the person who tipped him off, otherwise the consequences would be more serious. What he has to do now is to try every means to increase his presence in front of Yuan Ran, but not to make Yuan Ran bored. The best way is to appear when she is in need. What he does at that time can be the most deeply rooted in people's hearts. But just now, when he saw Xiao He trying to touch Yuan Ran, he couldn't help but rushed out. "Of course, I promise I won't disturb you, I just want to protect you." "I don't need anyone's protection. In the past 5 years, she has learned to be independent." B quickly took over her words, "It's me who needs it, it's me who needs it." Yuan Ran. With this kind of person, the euphemistic words should be said in vain. A small car parked on the side of the road. It turned out to be the Didi taxi driven by Yuan Ran. When getting into the car, Yuan Ran specifically prohibited Beye from following her in, and closed the door to let the driver drive. Beye, who was standing there, immediately turned around and ran back because his car was parked behind him. However, when he went back, he found an unexpected gift, which was a ticket, and a traffic policeman. B paid the fine neatly, but when he realized that he didn't have any cash on him, he wasted some time here. B was familiar with the roads in the city. He knew that another road that was not on the official map could catch up with Yuan Ran's home route faster, so he took the faster road. But he didn't see the car that Yuan Ran got into along the way, and he arrived at Yu's house first. B waited for a while and drove back along the road, but still didn't see the car coming. The right eye suddenly jumped. Yuan Ran was sitting in the car, leaning against the window and squinting. She didn't notice that the driver changed the route. She had an idea of estimating time. She raised her head and took a casual look, only to find that the area was dark and it was not the way home at all. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Ixie. Chapter 964. Chapter 964. Dragging into the woods. "Driver, you are going the wrong way," Yuan Ran suddenly cheered up. But the driver didn't stop or answer at this time. "Stop the car, I want to get out." Yuan Ran knocked on the car window. "Stop the car." At this moment, the driver said, "We'll be there soon, don't be in a hurry." The driver's tone sounded a little strange, but Yuan Ran couldn't think too much about it at this time. Yuan Ran hurriedly took out her mobile phone and wanted to make a call. The driver suddenly braked, causing her to lose her center of gravity and hit the back of the chair in front of her. The phone fell to the ground. Yuan Ran lowered his head to pick it up again, and the car stopped at this moment. Before she could pick up the phone, the driver had already opened the door and dragged her out. The screen of the mobile phone that was left in the car suddenly lit up, but Yuan Ran could no longer see it. Yuan Ran was roughly dragged out by the driver. When he got closer, Yuan Ran could smell the slightly obvious smell of alcohol on the driver's body. "Let me go." A woman's strength is still not as strong as a man's, and Yuan Ran can't break free from the man's hand. Don't shout, otherwise I can knock you unconscious. The driver's threatening words made Yuan Ran shut up. She can't break free now. If the driver really gets crazy and knocks her out, she will have no chance and will have no choice but to be slaughtered. The driver dragged her forward. The road was very narrow, and you could tell when you stepped on the ground that it was not a smooth road but a dirt path with some bumps. There were woods next to her, and the driver kept dragging her into the woods. If she couldn't resist, you can imagine what terrible things would happen. Her heartbeat fluctuated violently, and Yuan Ran kept telling herself to calm down. Only by being calm can we come up with a solution. Seeing himself being dragged into the woods, Yuan Ran did not struggle anymore, but took the initiative to stop the driver. Wait a minute. The woods are so thorny, don't you want to do something here? When the driver heard her unreasonable words, he suddenly laughed obscenely. Does this beauty know what good thing we are going to do? It's interesting. Yuan Ran avoided his gesture of taking advantage as quickly as possible and pretended to talk to him to delay. There are only two of us here. Since I can't escape, why make myself suffer more? Such a sensible beauty, of course I can't bear to let you suffer. So what does the beauty want me to do? Let's get back to the car. Perhaps she can take the opportunity to escape. The man looked at her obedient look and nodded in agreement. It turns out that beauties like cars. Yuan Ran felt nauseated at the words of the wretched driver, and almost vomited. She was pulled by the driver's hands and walked back. When she was about to reach the roadside, the driver suddenly came to his senses and changed his face. You are stalling for time. You want to go back and get your phone, right? Hearing the harsh words in his ear, Yuan Ran raised his foot and kicked the driver decisively. The driver said ouch and stopped his hand in pain. Yuan Ran wanted to run back to the car and close the door. When she walked around to the driver's seat, the driver was already chasing her. Yuan Ran immediately ran to the woods. This dark place was the easiest place to hide people. But she was not familiar with the terrain, and she didn't expect that there was a forest in this direction. She stepped forward and fell down. You stinky bitch, you still dare to play tricks on me. You run, I let you run. The driver stood on the roadside and looked at Yuan Ran condescendingly. Yuan Ran reached up and the driver jumped down to restrain her. My little beauty Ran Ran is really in trouble. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 965. Chapter 965, Got You. Go away. Yuan Ran had never been so humiliated before. Although he did not give up, he felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. The strange man tried to insult her, but she couldn't get away. He raised his foot and kicked the driver, but the man got defensive after suffering a loss once, and directly pressed her to the side, making her unable to move. The person who wanted to get in the car with you was your boyfriend, right? I hate you women the most. You can show off your looks to men just because you're pretty. I'll deal with you today, but you still have to be submissive. I heard some profound meaning from the driver's words. Yuan Ran's brain, which had studied politics and law, was working very quickly. Since he was speaking out his idea, it means that this matter stimulated the driver. That person is a brother. We have a conflict. My brother will soon find out that I am missing and he will find me. Your words remind me to do things quickly. She really hoped that someone would suddenly appear to save her, but the first name that came to her mind was actually, Bayet. At that moment, Yuan Ran's heart felt cold. She thought, if she was defiled in this place, she might as well die. Yuan Ran's resistance completely angered the person. The wretched driver slapped her the face and kept saying rude words. You bitch, you dare to attack me, I will let you know what the punishment for disobedience is. The man lowered his head and was about to kiss her. At that critical moment, Yuan Ran turned her head away, but the disgusting feeling still fell on her cheek. Tears fell silently, she hated her own frailty. Get away, get away. You can scream, no one will come to save you even if your throat is broken. Go away, don't. Boom. Yuan Ran shouted at the top of her voice. Suddenly she heard a sound and felt the man in front of her fall on top of her. Ah! Yuan Ran was really frightened and lost his mind. Suddenly a faint light shone in the darkness, and someone pulled her away and bumped her into a warm chest. The dark environment suddenly became brighter, and many people's voices were heard. It was the police who lit up the place and dragged the knocked-out driver to the side of the car. The frightened Yuan Ran was being supported with a pale face. She didn't know what she was feeling at the moment. She could hear the obvious beating of her heart and her whole body was trembling. When B saw her appearance, he hugged her into his arms with great distress. Of course, don't be afraid, I'm here. Gently pressed Yuan Ran's head into his chest, his voice was more than 8 degrees slower than usual. Of course, don't be afraid. Yuan Ran, who was too frightened, seemed to be able to hear the outside world at this moment. When she saw it was Beiye, she closed her hands tightly and held Beiye's sleeves. Woo woo woo. Once a person with weak emotions vents, it will be truly heartbreaking. Beiye, Beiye. I am here. But don't be afraid, I'm by your side. Yuan Ran felt extremely relieved when she heard his voice at the moment. She kept calling his name as if to seek comfort, and B answered every call of hers very patiently. B carried her into the car, and Yuan Ran didn't let go for a moment. Has that person been caught? Don't worry, no one will hurt you again. Yuan Ran looked up and saw that familiar face. She suddenly held his cheek, raised her head and kissed him. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 966. Chapter 966, Borrow the Bathroom. Yuan Ran took the initiative to kiss her, but B actually pushed her away. At that moment, the loss and confusion flashing through Yuan Ran's eyes made people feel sad. Ran. Beiye called her, but Yuan Ran suddenly reached out to push him away and opened the car door from the other side. When her feet were almost touching the ground, B pulled her from behind and said, of course, I'll take you home. Yuan Ran shook his head without saying a word, and his eyes became more wary of him, perhaps because of the rejection just now. At this moment, Yuan Ran is like a child, she needs someone to coax her. B jumped out of the car with her, but did not let her run away. Of course, I have no intention of rejecting you. The matter has not been settled yet, You bitch, come out here. Before Kitano finished his soft-spoken words, a rude voice interrupted him, and he was very angry. Yuan Ran immediately recognized the voice of the driver who had just met and molested her. She was so frightened that she immediately covered her ears and shook her head, resisting hearing the voice. The man got drunk after being stimulated. Now he couldn't control himself and started barking randomly. Yuan Ran, who suffered from sequelae, screamed and squatted down. Her reaction caught Kitano off guard. Tell him to shut up. Beiye roared and did not hear the voice of the wretched driver again. The frightened Yuan Ran erected sharp thorns all over her body and wrapped herself tightly, not allowing anyone to come close, otherwise she would be pricked by the sharp thorns on her body. But Beiye is not afraid. Of course, please stay awake, no one can hurt you, I will always be by your side. Beiye put his arms around her thin body and realized how fragile she was. I have experienced too many hardships these days. Not only has my physical health been seriously damaged, but my mental ability to bear it has also been suppressed, until I exploded just now. This dark place is definitely not a good place to chat. Kitano picked him up easily and asked the driver to drive back to where he lived after getting in the car. The lights in the room were bright and warm, which made Yuan Ran feel better. She is still relatively strong, at least she can listen to everything others say and think about it. The room Kitano took her into was the blue new room that had been specially prepared for celebrating the wedding. There were also a few photos of the two of them hanging in the room. Although Yuan Ran hasn't been here for a long time, this place is very clean and full of people, as if people live here every day. There are only two of us here, this is our home, do you remember? B followed the temptation and did not mention what happened in the woods just now in front of her. Yuan Ran's mood gradually stabilized, and her face returned to normal, but there was still a trace of fear in her eyes. During this period, Kitano held her hand and never let go. Can I borrow the bathroom? Yuan Ran looked down at her dirty appearance, feeling disgusted. You don't have to be so polite to me. This is your home. You know where the bathroom is, and there are clean bath towels in there. You go first and I'll find some clothes for you, okay? Perhaps because of what happened today, Yuan Ran rarely refused him indifferently. Yuan Ran had lived here for a while, so he naturally had a deep memory of the layout. He went straight to the bathroom, waited until he entered, closed the door tightly, and locked it. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 967. Chapter 967. Be honest with each other. I turned on the shower head and washed it directly over my body. I didn't seem to feel the coldness of the water at that moment. All that came to her mind were images of being pressed down by a man in the woods, and those things that had passed appeared before her eyes one by one. Yuan Ran closed her eyes tightly and let the water wet her hair and body. She took off her clothes and threw them into the trash can. She rubbed her whole body several times until her skin turned red. There was also the cheek that had been accidentally kissed. She scrubbed it over and over again with disinfectant hand sanitizer, but it seemed that she couldn't get it clean. Unknowingly, 10 minutes have passed. Beye, who had been waiting outside, was not at ease. At this time, he started knocking on the door. Of course, I have prepared the clothes for you. Hearing B's voice, Yuan Ran didn't answer. Instead, he held the rain shoriad to his face and washed it directly. She didn't answer, which made Beye even more uneasy. Hunted to turn the door handle, he found that Yuan Ran had already locked the door from the inside. Beye secretly said, "Not good. Of course, you are happy." He kept slapping her and making noises, but he did not dare to be cruel to her. "Of course, can you hear me?" B could only hear the sound of washing water, and he felt even more anxious. Yuan Ran refused to agree, so B had to run back to the room to get the bathroom key. He had to run all the way home. After 2 minutes of going back and forth, Kitano got the key and opened the lock directly. Yuan Ran, who was unshielded, was exposed to B's sight. The honesty scene is particularly stimulating. But Beye is not a lustful man. What he cares more about is the abnormal red marks on Yuan Ran's body and the injured look on the left cheek. Why hurt yourself? When you are worried, you will inevitably reveal your impatient nature. After you finish speaking, you will notice that your words may scare Yuan Ran. "I'm sorry Ran, I'm not yelling at you, you are making me feel distressed." After reacting, he apologized directly. Kitano picked up the towel and walked over to wrap it in her. Yuan Ran gradually squatted down. Beye followed her movements and squatted on one knee. Yuan Ran turned her back to him, lowered her head, and cried until she couldn't stop crying. She is the kind of person who is used to suffering on her own. Even after she has suffered huge grievances, she seems to have nowhere to rely on. She has always had to lick her wounds alone. After getting herself covered with bruises, she uses the pain of flesh and blood to cover up the pain in her heart. The fear will finally end when the wound slowly heals. This process is extremely uncomfortable. Of course, you still have me. Let me stay by your side to protect you from now on, okay? If you are still angry with me and don't want to see me, I can hide myself. I just hope you don't refuse my protection for you. Once proud of being public, arrogant, but who would think of such iron-bone men, there were still when they were now soft. He willingly put down his pride and bowed to the woman he loved. No longer forcefully approach, but willing to retreat behind to protect her. I just hope that I can protect her well. Of course, I will never force you to do anything you don't want to do. From now on, please let me stay by your side to protect you, okay? B asked her about her choice without bothering. Just when he thought Yuan Ran wouldn't answer, a small and weak voice suddenly came from his ears. Good. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 968. Chapter 968 Scratches on the Body. Of course, you finally agreed to me. The moment he heard Yuan Ran said yes, Kitano felt like a big boy who had just caught up with the girl he liked. He was very happy. He stretched out his hand to pull Yuan Ran up. Yuan Ran stood up following his movements. Without paying attention, the bath towel on her body slipped directly to her feet. Another scene of being honest with each other appears. Yuan Ran, who had regained consciousness, suddenly blushed and quickly picked up the bath towel. Beye stopped her movement. It's already wet when it falls on the ground. Having just taken a shower, the floor was full of water. Now that the towel fell on the floor, it was already wet. It must be uncomfortable to stick to your body. But with Yuan Ran's temperament, how could she be so unscrupulous in front of men? Even facing Beye, she would be shy. Yuan Ran insisted on wrapping herself in a bath towel, so Kitano stopped teasing her and directly pulled his own bath towel to cover her. This is my bath towel, use it first. At this time, Yuan Ran didn't care whose belongings it was. He held the two ends tightly and followed B back to the room. A loose nightgown was already placed on the bed. Yuan Ran pointed to Angzan at the door, and Beye took the hint. Now is not an opportunity to tease the beauty, so Kitano stood outside the door and waited without saying a word. All right. Yuan Ran quickly changed into pajamas, but her long wet hair was still messy behind her back. Beye took an absorbent towel and sent her hair. Yuan Ran rarely uses a hair dryer. Most of the time, she waits for her hair to dry naturally to avoid damaging the hair quality. But it's a bit late today. If I wait for my hair to dry, it may take a long time. She went to find the hair dryer herself and could see it when she opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet. But after she finished the series of actions, she realized that she was so familiar with everything here and was so skilled at finding things, as if she had never forgotten this place. As soon as Yuan Ran got the hair dryer, the thing in his hand was suddenly taken away. Of course, I'm here to help you. How could Kitano be willing to give up this great opportunity to get close? Of course he was competing to express himself in front of Yuan Ran. Yuan Ran had indulged him many times today, and it was the same this time. She sat down obediently and let B do whatever he wanted with her hair. Taking advantage of this moment, Yuan Ran called the Yu family's computer again, found a suitable reason to prevaricate, and told them not to return to the Yu family tonight. Everyone in the Yu family knows that Yuan Ran always has her own opinions on things, and they have never doubted whether her reasons are true after hearing her words. In short, Yuan Ran said this, which means that she can stay here today, and B will definitely not refuse. I dried my hair and turned off the hair dryer. The buzzing sound just now stopped suddenly. Neither of them spoke. This rather small bedroom made people feel uncomfortable breathing. Yuan Ran suddenly mentioned, the drunk driver just now will be fined. I will handle that matter naturally, so don't keep thinking about it. I want to see him brought to justice. Will do. No matter what Yuan Ran says at the moment, Beiye will agree with him. The driver was considered a drunk driver. Even if what happened next was an attempted crime, he could still get a jail sentence. Beiye put the hairdryer back and brought out another ointment. Moving aside Yuan Ran's long hair, you can clearly see the red marks behind her that were scratched by her fingers. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 969. Chapter 969, Sleep with Me. I'll take it myself. Before Beiye could reach out to touch her back, Yuan Ran snatched the ointment from his hand. Can you see your back? After B said this, he took the ointment back from her hand and said, why are you so stubborn? Give me the medicine. Yuan Ran let him take away the ointment, and slowly opened the shoulder straps of her pajamas to expose her back. Yuan Ran is really willing to do something to herself, and the scratches cannot be eliminated in a short time. Don't hurt yourself in the future. Yuan Ran didn't answer, but she did listen. Gently apply the medicine to the severely scratched areas on your body. The most important thing is your face. There were no scratches on the face, but it was obviously red. I'll do it here by myself. Yuan Ran was still not used to others staring at her all the time. She took the ointment and applied it in front of the mirror. After everything was done, Ye Wei returned the ointment to Kitano and thanked him distantly. Okay, thank you. Beiye no longer pestered her as shamelessly as before. After getting the medicine, he nodded and said, then, you have a good rest, I'm leaving. Yuan Ran nodded. When she fell asleep, she lay on the bed and rolled herself into a ball, not even daring to turn off the light. Forcing yourself to sleep, but as soon as you close your eyes, you will think of the bad picture. Yuan Ran closed her eyes tightly and covered her ears with her hands. Suddenly, she felt the light in front of her eyes darken. He opened his eyes suddenly and saw the dim street light outside the window. The room was dark. When the switch is pressed, the room becomes as bright as daylight in an instant. Ran Kitano pushed the door open and turned on the brightest main switch in the room. Yuan Ran breathed a sigh of relief when he heard a familiar voice. Before Yuan Ran could ask, Beiye was explaining, I just thought there was something wrong with the bedside lamp, and I happened to see the light in the room go out. Actually, he had been standing outside. From the crack in the door, he could see a faint light inside. Suddenly he realized that the room was dark, so he opened the door and went in. But it was this little accident that shocked Yuan Ran. Beiye comforted her again, sleep well. Until he turned around and left, he heard Yuan Ran's voice coming from behind, wait a minute. How? This room is yours, so you should sleep here. In the second half of the sentence, she not only weakened her voice, but also turned her head away. This obvious little gesture caught his eye, and he raised his right hand into a fist at the corner of his mouth and coughed slightly to hide his smile. Beiye was overjoyed. That's right, I don't care about the bed, but I can't sleep in my own bed. However, you sir have given me half of it. Thank you very much. Come on, this joy is just a joke. If it were normal, Yuan Ran might just kick the person down. But at this time, Yuan Ran also moved to the side, making way for B to make way for a large space. B was very dissatisfied with the bed area, because Yuan Ran was almost close to the bed, occupying 1/5 of the bed. So many positions left for him. Of course that won't work. After lying on the bed, Kitano leaned over and pulled the person to his side. He also said, it would be bad if you fall. Yuan Ran. She sleeps very well and almost never turns over during the night. Yuan Ran was frightened tonight and even scratched her body. B also resisted his desire and did not bully her. With someone by his side, Yuan Ran finally fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, B woke up and opened his eyes, only to hear soft sobbing. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 970. Chapter 970. Give up on me and find a girl who loves you. Ran Ran. Yuan Ran originally had her back turned to him, but B shouted twice without getting a response, and actually cried in her sleep. Have he never seen Yuan Ran look so fragile? He could almost feel that his heart was no longer his. Of course, wake up. Yuan Ran woke up. When he opened his eyelashes trembled slightly and were moist. She raised her head and saw the face close at hand. She slowly raised her hand to touch his cheek and moved her lips, but she didn't know what to say. Beiya knew that she was frightened because of what happened in the woods today, and he always instilled a concept in her: don't cry, I will protect you, and no one can hurt you anymore. Even though these words have been spoken more than once or twice, Yuan Ran hugged him tightly this time. At that time, I was really scared. The danger has passed and will never happen again. Beiya patted her back and kept calming her down. It is easiest to stir people's hearts at night, and it will make you lose half of your sanity during the day, especially at this time. Yuan Ran said all the things that she usually wanted to say but didn't dare to say. She also told Kitano personally, if things get to the point of no return, I want to die, but I don't dare to die. I am the only descendant of the Yu family. Even so, it was enough to shock Beiya. Beiya's first thought was definitely not to doubt whether her innocence was destroyed, but to tell her clearly, of course. You have to remember that no matter what terrible things happen, protecting your own life is the most important thing. B. There are actually things I haven't told you. You are very good. You are an outstanding man. The municipal committee is not worthy of you. After tonight, you should stop being persistent. Forget the past and find someone you like. A girl who can love you without any scruples will make you happy for the rest of your life. Yuan Ran, I don't allow you to say such things. Listen to me, it's only now that I have the courage to tell you what's on my mind. Yuan Ran squinted his eyes slightly, sighed and slowly opened his eyes. She also said, the person who is with me should have no feelings for me so that he won't be hurt by me. I don't deny my heart. I did love you, so I choose to wish you happiness. Don't stop be bound by my feelings and give up on me and you will find someone more suitable for you. Her character, no one else needs to tell her, she herself knows that a woman like her is really not suitable for falling in love and settling down. She is unable to have children, and it may be difficult to find a suitable man who can accept her infertility. She has thought about it. If there is no other way, she will choose a smart child to train as the future successor of the Yu family. The Yu family may be destined to no longer have blood to pass on. Yuan Ran's heart is fragile and vulnerable at the moment. Kitano's temper that he had managed to hold back was about to burst out. Yuan Ran, I don't allow you to say such things. You have no right to decide who I like or who I am with. B suddenly sat up, stared into her eyes and told her seriously, Yuan Ran, please listen to me clearly, B, don't want anyone but you in my life. If you don't promise me, I won't force you. I will wait until you are willing to look back. Beiya, speak from my heart, and there is absolutely no lie. End of this chapter.